While many family channels where parents vlog their children's lives are well loved, there is also quite the controversy about whether it is ethical for children. Though viewers believe that 8 passengers had taken it to another level and that their children were in danger. When millions of viewers as well as actual neighbors begged the police to do something to help these kids, why did it take a 12-year-old's escape years later for action? You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my video. This is a highly requested video and every media outlet is rushing to cover it. And normally I don't do the well-spoken about cases because I'd rather give my platform to ones that aren't really vocalized. However, in this case, we are not only going to talk about the documented alleged abuse, but also about the failure and the documentation of the failure of the Child and Family Services, an epidemic that I have an entire playlist speaking on because I'm so incredibly passionate about it. You guys know this? Again, this is just another failure, and this happened literally last month in August of 2023.
And in the end, each of us will account to God for how we protected kids.
Popular family YouTuber who has more than 2 million followers and the business partner in this YouTube channel are facing child abuse charges.
So let's go ahead and get into this story. So it was August 30th of 2023 in Ivins, Utah, when a family would call 911, and they claimed that a boy had knocked on their door and had asked for food and water. This was about 10:50 p.m., but he had duct tape on his wrists and his ankles as though he was bound. He also had open wounds. He began to tell them that he had jumped from the window of the home where he was staying. He was a 12-year-old who was identified as first as RF.
A 12-year-old boy showed up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Okay. Is your door locked?
No, I'm sitting outside with him on the front patio. And he asked us to call the police. So he's very afraid.
Are the neighbors out of their home, or is anybody looking for him that you can see?
No. Our homes are far enough away. I'm not sure. How did you get out of the house? He says you just left through the porch at the neighbor's house.
Does he seem to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
I don't think so, but he's very thirsty and...
need an ambulance?
I don't think he needs an ambulance. I'll let the cops decide that, but his ankles are taped up and he won't tell us why.
Okay.
But he has duct taped around each ankle. Yeah, there's sores around them. I think there's a good chance he's been... Oh, and he has them around his ankles. I mean his wrists as well. Okay, this boy has been... This kid has obviously been, I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds. Do you know who your mom and dad are?
Well, actually, I don't know where my mom is, but I do know where my dad is. He's not anywhere here. Nowhere here.
Ruby Franke is his mom's name.
And does she live in the area?
No, I'm not sure where she lives. He's trying to help us, but he's...
That's okay. We don't want to stress him out too much. The officers will go over all these questions with him anyway.
He says what's happened to him is his fault.
A house of horrors was about to be exposed, and yet 2 million people had tried to save these kids for years prior. You see, for the last decade, family vloggers have had a rise to fame on social media. Many families have shared their lives, their children's lives, and showcased their parenting skills as well. This is just something that has really taken over YouTube, and so 8 Passengers was a YouTube channel created in 2015 by a family living in Utah with their 6 children. So this was Rudy Franke, her husband Kevin, and their 6 children who were Sherry, Chad, Abby, Julie, Russell, and Eve. Now, Kevin was also a professor at the Brigham Young University as well. But due to this large family size, it quickly grew in popularity, and so for the next 7 years, they continued creating videos of their lives in Springville, Utah for their over 2 million viewers. Ruby would often give parenting advice or what she was doing with the kids when they were misbehaving, and she was often recording every little thing that they did at all.
Looks like you are. Hey, Russell. I'm only going to say it one more time, and then you're going to lose the privilege to eat dinner.
But these viewers began to fear for these children's safety back in 2020 after a video was released to the 8 Passengers YouTube channel where Chad, the second oldest, confessed that he had actually gotten in trouble because he was pranking one of his younger brothers. And so for the next 7 months, he actually wasn't allowed in his bedroom and he had to sleep on a beanbag chair.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October, and they gave my room back like 2 weeks ago. Oh, I'll give you the reason why I lost my bedroom. I think so. I think this is the reason. At least this is the reason that's been in my head. It's pretty funny, but now that I look back, I mean, it's pretty depressing.
No, we never told our viewers.
That I woke Russell up at 2 in the morning and told him that we're going to Disneyland and he has to pack. And he got up and made his bed all neatly and then packed all his clothes in a suitcase. And then he walked out the door and I'm like, Russell, he was like, what? And he's all happy. Has his sunglasses on. And I was like, we're not going to Disneyland. And he started crying and hitting me. And then he went back to bed in tears and then...
So that was not the reason you lost your room, but that was...
Well, the other reason is because I pointed a BB gun at his face.
Pointed a BB gun at his face and hung him on the basketball. It's not funny. Basically, Chad...
Oh, like the day I got home, too.
Chad came home from Anasazi, and Chad showed that he was not able to manage himself sharing a bedroom with Russell.
So when we moved, the bigger room in the basement was automatically his, and I didn't have a room, but we like put one on hold for me.
So a lot of you are like, hey, that's not fair because Chad got the lesser bedroom and Russell got the bigger bedroom. Russell got the big bedroom and Chad got the smaller bedroom. And Russell's bigger bedroom also had a bathroom. But what you guys didn't know was Chad didn't get any room. He didn't get anything. He was sleeping on the floor in the family room.
There was also a short mention of this wilderness therapy camp that he was forced to go to, allegedly. But as soon as this video was uploaded, many of the rumors began spinning about child abuse, that this wasn't right for them to be doing, and to help Chad and the other children. However, the Franke parents responded that they were teaching their children about the consequences of their actions, and they backed up their choices.
Okay, you guys, I need to go have a talk with Russell. The fact that he's not willing to sit with me and be humble and talk is a big demonstration to me that he has some distorted views and that he is in a lot of shame. Oh, there you are. I was just talking about you. Do you want to come sit with me and talk? I'm gonna get down on your level. I've noticed that you've been hiding from me and you are feeling a lot of embarrassment and shame. Mad?
Because I really won't get anything this summer. I won't be able to go anywhere. No, I don't have any friends. No iPads, no TV, nothing.
Now, every video from there on out was analyzed by concerned viewers, and then they heard the mother, Ruby, talking about how her daughter had actually forgotten her packed lunch for school that day, but that she wasn't going to bring it to her because she needed to learn. Ruby told the camera that her hope was that Eve would come home and think about how it was so painful to be hungry all day, so she would never forget to bring her lunch with her. There was another instance where she also didn't wake up Eve for school because Eve had slept in, and she refused to wake her up to tell her that she had overslept. And at this point, Ruby's oldest daughter, Sherry, actually spoke up, and Sherry said that Eve could not control when she woke up. She was only 6. There was another instance where Eve was forced to apologize to Ruby after Ruby had told her that they were going to the movies, and Eve's response was, "What movie?" And apparently Ruby didn't think that was the correct response and threatened to leave her at home. Another incident that Ruby was allegedly willingly telling this channel was that her daughter had been cutting things up around the house and that she threatened to cut off one of the heads of her daughter's stuffed toy. In another video, this mother admitted that her 2 youngest kids wouldn't get presents from Santa because they were selfish. She also explained that she often withheld meals as punishment. Now, petitions were started by the viewers hoping to get CPS involved, and eventually Child and Family Services in Utah were contacted by the viewers, but they allegedly found no evidence and the case was closed. The Frankies claimed that they were just another victim of cancel culture, and Ruby said that the real reason that Chad was out of his room and out of his bed is because he was sharing a bed with his younger brother, and therapists had recommended that they separate after they had had a few incidents. And so Ruby explained that Chad had a few different options on what he wanted to sleep on, and that is what he chose was the beanbag. So Ruby told Insider that what people weren't understanding was that she gave her children a choice in everything. Though she also said that Chad couldn't get his bed back until he was behaving better, and that took 7 months. Ruby then started calling police at that time, claiming that she was receiving threatening calls and texts, and one allegedly said that this person was going to take her family down, that there would be riots at her door, and the world would find out the truth. She was also threatened not to post on social media, and so their family hired a private investigator, and there was a certain individual who had come to their door. However, nobody could be identified as that person. In 2022, the 8 Passengers channel was completely gone, and Ruby claimed that she stopped uploading videos to save her children from being hurt from constant advice from their following. Though this was not the only YouTube channel that Ruby was involved in. There was also a channel called Hildenbrand's Connections Classroom, created in June of 2022. So right about that same time when their family channel, 8 Passengers, disappeared. This is why Ruby said that she wanted to move on. She wanted to get more involved in this channel as a mental health coach with her business partner, Jody. This was said to be a business as well as a YouTube channel where they wanted to help people successfully navigate life through impeccable honesty, rigorous personal responsibility, and vulnerable humility. It was referred to as a mom support group, though many began to listen to what these women were saying and got the feeling this was more like a cult. And Jody Hildenbrand often spoke in these videos about how they were the moms of truth, and that parents had no obligation to love, to support, to nurture, or to care for their children, only to teach them about Jesus and to save them by any means necessary. It then began selling parenting classes for people to actually buy online. Now, Ruby's business partner for this classroom channel, Jody, was said to be a licensed therapist. However, her license had been suspended for over a year because she had allegedly taken patient information and gone to the Mormon church to confess what this couple was telling her in the sessions about their porn addiction. The Connections channel showed a lot of Jody and Ruby's true opinions and the harsh language that they like to use. Jody would say in one video that a woman cannot begin engaging in sexual activity and then change their mind and ask their partner to stop, because then if they're raped, it is her choice, and that she needs to practice abstinence. They were also talking about the LGBTQ+ community having made up words, and that a transgender or a homosexual person was just a distortion because the only thing a person can be is a child of God.
I was a hugely disconnected, selfish, aggressive, neglectful mother.
Entitled.
entitled, I wanted my kids to be happy, which AKA translated into, I want my kids to get off my back. Because I want to do what I want to do. I want to be able to go to Target. I want to be able to shop. I want to be able to have a moment of silence where I can just think. It was all about me. And I made my kids responsible for that. I have been full-time. You wonder where I've been on my vlogs? You wonder why I left YouTube? It's to save my kids. No amount of money. And I'm telling you, I was making millions. And I left it because my kids were being hurt. With entitlement, they were being hurt. With people's advice, and they didn't have a mother up the front saying, I don't care what the world's opinion is. This is the truth, and this is where I stand. And fortunately, I had a chance. I had them in my home long enough to do it, and I'm not going to lose them. They're seeing truth, they're accepting truth, they're loving truth. And so this is my passion, is to invite you to stand in truth and put your opinions to the side for a minute. Because your kids are the target of distortion.
You cannot find this channel on YouTube anymore either, and a YouTube spokesperson claimed that they had actually terminated both channels after they broke the creator responsibility guidelines, and this was in 2023. So after the child's escape on August 30th of 2023, police arrived in the neighborhood and found that RF was Russell Franke. The home where he had come from, though, was owned by a woman named Jody Hildebrandt. Russell was then taken to the hospital for his deep lacerations, where they believed that he was tied up with a rope. He was also severely malnourished. And when the police arrived at Jody's home, they also found another child. This was a little girl, believed to be the 10-year-old daughter, Eve. And she also appeared malnourished, and she actually refused to go to the hospital and refused medical assistance for a while, but then eventually did agree to go. That day, Ruby Franke would be taken into custody, and this was on suspicion of 2 counts of aggravated child abuse. Then her business partner Jody Hildebrandt was also arrested. It was believed that these children were in the care of Jody. However, 2 days prior to the arrest, Ruby had actually been filming herself in Jody's home with her children, and investigators believe that this meant that she was aware of the abuse and neglect. After a search warrant was obtained, investigators found evidence consistent with the markings on Russell. The arrest affidavit stated that the investigators found gauze in Jody's bathroom, and so that led them to believe that she was involved or aware of the neglect and abuse as well. And according to police scanner audio that has been released, they also allegedly found a panic room or a safe room in Jody's garage. No one knows what it was used for at this point, or at least it hasn't been revealed.
ALT, there's a panic room inside the garage, downstairs underneath the garage. Yeah, he says it's downstairs and it's underneath one of the garages, and he's calling it a safe room. He said something about Fort Knox, so I don't know if it has a Fort Knox door or safe on it.
Now, 4 of the Franke children in total were taken into custody of CPS. This was believed to be Abby, Julie, Russell, and Eve. And the other 2 children, Sherry and Chad, were believed to be adults at this time, so they were not still being watched and taken care of by their mother. In fact, Sherry Franke, who was the oldest, was 20 years old at this time. She was not living with a family, though she did show up at the scene of the arrest and even posted a picture of it, saying, finally. You see, Sherry hadn't just moved out because she was an adult. She was actually estranged from her family. In 2020, she very publicly left her family after they had joined this connections classroom because she believed that the views were just dangerous and not right. When she went to college, she realized that her parents' beliefs weren't okay.
Okay, so I am the oldest of 6 kids. When I was in 10th grade, so I was like 15, my family joined a group, like a mental health, kind of like a self-help group, basically. This group became more extreme, that I disagreed with what was going on. I noticed, like, when I would leave my family, like, I would just feel, like, spiritually drained. Like, I just wouldn't feel great. Yeah, and I had friends that would point out to me when I'd come home from my family, they're like, you're different. The reason it took me so long was because I didn't have, like, the widest support group. Family that I was friends with in high school, and they've kind of taken me in as their own daughter. But a lot of stuff happened in our family that almost kind of, like, did it for me. Oh, interesting. me not hiding in my room. I think doing your research behind organizations and groups, like, if there are any, like, huge major red flags, you'll probably find them there.
She left, and then at this point, there were also rumors that her father, Kevin, and her brother, Chad, also left the home as well, leaving Ruby and the 4 youngest alone. Around the time when Ruby was said to be cut off from her oldest daughter, son, and her husband, she was also said to cut off her parents and her siblings as well. This was the Griffiths, who actually had a YouTube channel of their own, and Ruby spoke about her family in the Connections Classroom channel after they had went their separate ways, saying that no matter how much she indoctrinates her children, a little bit of influence from her family could contaminate them, and so she cut them off. It appeared as though the main person in Ruby's life at that point was this Jody character. And it also appeared as though Jody had care of her children at the time as well. So soon after Ruby and Jody's arrest, in an Instagram story, Sherry Franke explained that her and her family were so glad that justice was being served because they had been trying to tell police and CPS for years. So they were glad that they had finally decided to step up and do something. Now, Ruby Franke's sisters, so these kids' aunts, began to speak out saying that they were quiet for so long for the sake of the children, but behind the scenes they were fighting and doing everything that they could to make sure that those kids were safe. Neighbors began to come forward saying that they thought police were going to come out of that house with body bags because they claimed that Ruby was an awful neighbor who would lecture other residents if they had inappropriate photos, meaning if it was a woman in a pair of shorts, she didn't like that. And the neighbors also raised concerns about the children prior to all this. They said that the Franke children would spend so much time alone in that home. They also would be outside pulling weeds for hours in the heat. And they stopped going to school after Kevin left. And they knew that because Eve would often come over and ask to play with their children. And they would have to say, she's at school, it's going to be hours. And Eve would just say, I'll wait. Neighbors then started noticing in 2022 that things were very weird. Ruby was taping up her windows and then would disappear for weeks, leaving her kids alone. Police reports obtained by CSL TV showed that police actually responded to that home more than a dozen times over the last 4.5 years, and many of them were about the children's well-being. Neighbors, as well as the older siblings, reported Ruby a year prior to the arrest, and 15 visits occurred between March 2019 and August of 2023, with the Department of Child and Family Services joining them for 5 of them. The reason for those reports were revealed, and in April of 2022, 2 of the Franke children were seen outside running on the road unsupervised, so the police were called, and when they arrived, they were not there, so they let it go. And then in September of 2022, Sherry actually called the police after neighbors had called her saying that her younger siblings were home alone and had been for days at this point. So officers knocked on the door and they actually saw the kids inside, but they would not answer. So the neighbors started coming up to the police and told them that Ruby was often doing this, that she would leave them for her friend Jody, and that it was about 5 days at this point. Now, DCFS was said to get involved, and so they returned to the home about 4 times that month, but the children were not taken into custody, and nothing was really done, and DCFS has yet to release any of the information about what they found or how they closed the case, but the children remained in the care of their mother even after so many reports. This is what has occurred since.
But when we searched the home, we learned that there was one more individual that was malnourished and very emaciated and hiding in the home, so we were able to call EMS, and then both children were transported to the St. George Regional Hospital.
So while in custody, 41-year-old Ruby Franke refused to speak and requested a lawyer. She was then denied bail after a detective claimed that the injuries of her 2 kids in that home were severe. Ruby and Jody were then each charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse, and on September 7th, there was an alleged hearing at the juvenile court for the 4 children in state custody to determine their future custody. And in a shocking statement, Ruby allegedly told the court that one of her minor children had been sexually abusing a younger sibling for years, and that this child confessed to sexually abusing 20 people back in May. They also had started watching porn at 3 years old. Now, the judge declared that this child would not be placed in a home with other children. Jodi Hildebrandt was also denied bail, and she requested a lawyer but then told the police that the children should never be allowed around any other kids. Jodi and Ruby are currently in separate jails, and each count of the child abuse charges against them could receive a sentence of 10 to 15 years. The Washington County attorney told NBC News that these two women may have caused or permitted serious injury through a combination of multiple physical injuries, of torture, starvation, of malnutrition, jeopardizing life, and causing severe emotional harm. The next court date is set for September 8th of 2023, and if I learn anything more before I put up this video, I will add it here. On September 8th, Ruby and Jodi were set to appear in court in St. George, Utah. However, the virtual hearing was overwhelmed by the thousands of people who turned in, so the public was then banned from the hearing that had to be rescheduled. An alleged cousin of Ruby, Franke, did an interview with Law and Crime Network claiming that abuse of children is something that has been generational for their family, including being duct taped, and she said this case is bigger than people know. A district court, though, has recommended the release of Ruby pending trial. She will have monthly check-ins by phone, pretrial monitoring, and hearing date reminders, and this hasn't been confirmed yet, but this is being requested. The children's father, Kevin, he did hire an attorney, and he began to fight to keep his children not only together, but to have custody of them, to take care of them. He told his attorney that he and Ruby had been separated for over a year. They were living in completely different places, and Kevin was distraught over the allegations. His lawyer said he had no role in the alleged abuse, and the lawyer said that their mom had the kids for the summer and went to live with Jodi out of the county, and so Kevin was actually a couple hundred miles away from them. Though, do you believe that Kevin should get any time for his alleged role when he was with Ruby? Was he in a lot of those videos? We have certain clips of videos, but we don't have all of them since the channel has been deleted, and so do you think that he has involvement in what occurred prior to going to Jodi's house? But Sherry Franke, the oldest child, has announced that the other kids are safe, her siblings, but there's a long road ahead. Now, Sherry Franke is also asking for help in gathering information and evidence from the Connections channel, and she has shared a Google document requesting people to attach parts of videos that could be used against them in court. I will leave the link to this, but please be respectful and only post helpful information. You can also use this as a place to research more about the family and certain videos that were posted on their channel that's now deleted. They survived a house of horrors. They will have a lifetime of healing, but hopefully this marks the beginning of that. Let me know if you want me to keep you updated on this case. Should the family and child services in Utah have done more? I think that's a very obvious question, but it wasn't obvious enough for them to do anything about it, so who knows? You know, normally when we cover survivor stories, they happen because these children or these people are kidnapped by normally someone they don't know. There are the parental kidnappings, but normally someone that they don't know. However, in this survivor's case, they literally had to survive the very home that they were born into and grew up in, and that's all they ever knew, and that is just so incredibly heartbreaking. And to know that this mother, possibly these parents, were recording while also making their children's lives a living hell, that is just pure terrifying. They had 2 million subscribers, and it does bring me a lot of hope that the viewers did see the wrongdoings and didn't just let it continue on. Even if they noticed it and they made petitions about it and they tried to speak out about it, they can't do much when the authorities, when Child and Family Services aren't holding up their end of the justice system. I'd also love to have a discussion down below about cancel culture, because just like in this case, the Frankes, or at least Ruby, was trying to say it was all cancel culture, that none of this alleged abuse was happening, that all of the comments of these people seeing certain things and having this weird feeling about it was just them trying to take away their YouTube channel, or that they were successful. And it's just this weird concept, because to me, cancel culture, it's very toxic in a lot of ways. And then we see it happening here where people are speaking out. And in this case, they were correct, and they could have prevented years of possible abuse if someone had listened to them then. So it's just this fine line on whether it's doing anything good. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that down below as well. Also, what do you think about family channels and vloggers and having children in vlogs or just YouTube videos in general? What are your thoughts about that? Should these children get a say in when they are recorded, or if they want to be? Should it be something where they have to wait until they're of legal age to consent to this? But in this case, them being filmed actually showed the horrors happening to them. But again, it didn't necessarily stop it. So I just don't know. I had to bring this to you. I am horrified. And I hope it just lets people know that you don't really know what's happening behind the scenes of anything. And that allegations or just gut feelings, gut instincts, strange behavior should be looked into and taken seriously. And if nothing is found, then nothing is found. But if there is, then it needs to be dealt with. So make sure to subscribe so you know when I have updated you on this case and come out with even more cases to share with you. And don't forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay.